Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art, where we do deep dives into deep cuts and help you understand why damn things matter. I'm your host, Novo Day, and today we're going to be talking about art and horror, focusing on a variety of artistic mediums. Yes, the closest thing to a top 10, maybe top 20 list. And so we're going to shine a light on a number of artists and a lot of artists' work. And we're going to do that through what we're calling the modern masters of horror. To hash it out, I'm joined by our master of the voice, our very own silver tongue of horror, laced with the scary, unique, and macabre. That's right, Mr. Tomie Teachum, a.k.a. Philip Church. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Church.
Novo.
Oh, that's good. Is that the Crypt Keeper?
It was inspired by it, yeah.
Oh, that was good.
I can't believe
man.
you remembered that dumbass Tomie Teachum bullshit.
Yes, guys. See? Well, what did I tell you? Don't worry. We're going to have him back on the show. I was going to bring back Tomie Teachum. Come on now. That's a fan favorite. Everybody's talking about Tomie Teachum. I know you're never gonna live that down. It's gonna come back to haunt you.
Speaking of haunting,
that's right. Today we're talking about modern masters of horror. Why? Because my thesis is simple, and I would love to hear your 2 cents on the topic. And it is this: we are currently living through a new era of horror. One might say a renaissance.
I would agree. I think where the world has gotten us, both in terms of like industrialization, modernization, the internet being a giant global think tank, it's allowed everybody to confirm that I'm not alone in this awful phobia of mine, and that weirdly we've all now collaborated on new levels of terrors and things that can just torment your brain. So yeah, I am a big fan. I think it's my favorite genre. And just given how ridiculous of a time we live in, I get so many of the other things in my life. There's so much drama and there's so much everything but true supernatural horror. I feel like I could sort of get from my everyday life. So I feel like lately I'll watch a good movie. It's not like I only watch horror. I still go see, and we talk of course about movies and music all the time, but I still get more excited than anything for horror because of, I think, where it has gotten to over the last 15-ish years or so.
Now before we can discuss, of course, we all need a little background. Now the background's going to be a little different today because obviously we're going to be highlighting a number of artists and a lot of their work. So the background is more on why I wanted to kind of tell the good people why, how we got here, why we're talking about these artists today.
It does happen to be October. That doesn't hurt.
It is the closest thing we have to a Halloween special, indeed, indubitably. Well, okay, so Mr. Church was pitching a show for us for this Halloween special, and he said we should do it on Mike Flanagan. And I thought, oh, that's a great topic.
Flanagan for life.
Flanagan for life. Yes. And I said, oh my God, that's a great topic. But then it made me think of, oh, well, what about this person? And what about him? What about her? And then I realized, you know what? There is so many modern horror masters that maybe we should shine a light on a number of them. And then in the future, highlight them with their own show. So don't worry, guys. I know for all you Flan heads out there, the Flan family, we're going to do a show on Mike Flanagan because, again, a perfect example of someone we love to highlight on the show, where I bet a lot of you have no idea who Mike Flanagan is, but you know his work.
You will.
So, yes, in the future, we'll definitely do probably a show on a lot of these people. They'll get their own piece and their own full-length podcast episode. But today, yeah, I just wanted to give an umbrella and give a lot of love to a number of amazing artists out there that are really bringing this renaissance of horror to us. I mean, like we've never seen before, because we have things like this every few decades. I would say right before that, there was maybe a soft renaissance for sci-fi, with films like Annihilation and all these things. And now we're getting horror. So it is a perfect time for horror with so many different, streaming services, so many different ways to consume art. And yeah, we wanted to highlight a lot of people. So this is kind of the closest thing we had. I already joked about this in the intro. This is the closest thing we'll have to maybe like a listicle, like top 10, top 20 best artists right now. But that's my fucking radio.
Top
radio
10 horror
voice.
artists for millennials.
For geriatric millennials like us. And but here's the thing. It's in no particular order. So I know you're gonna get butthurt if one, we didn't say the person that you are thinking of. Please write a nasty email to Clayton Anderson, our producer,
and or Buck, DC Buck,
or Buck, yes, but not to us.
No.
We don't want to deal with that. We don't have time for that stuff. So that's kind of so I just wanted to kind of
don't
frame
bother the talent.
Yeah, we wanted to frame the show with the purpose and the direction that we're doing today. Now, before we hash it out, of course, you need a little word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the novel The Entropy Sessions, a tale of loss, love, and madness, and our past, present, and future relationships with technology. Find it on Amazon and as an audiobook through Audible. Your support helps us continue our journey. Now back to the show. So I thought we would just start with Mike Flanagan, since that was kind of and then the second one is the one I pitched to Philip. I was like, oh, what about him? And then that kind of slowly turned into this episode where we're kind of highlighting a lot of
snowballed
people
from there in the best way possible.
So Mike Flanagan is a artist that works primarily in film, television, and he writes a lot of his own work. You know his work from Absentia. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, Absentia.
Okay. Absentia, Oculus, Gerald's Game, which is based off a Stephen King story, Dr. Sleep, and then probably what most of you guys know him from. So the next Netflix series is Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, and then the Tell the Good People. This is how I'll tee you up. Kind of the future of his work.
Yeah, he is such a hardworking guy. It's part of what has made me come to appreciate Mike Flanagan so much more than just the fact that he's got like some more recent hits. But yeah, he's been like working his ass off, and pretty much just like all of his stuff hits, in my opinion. He doesn't take his work lightly. And so ever since he kind of like debuted back around 2011, this first like sort of feature film, he just like never stopped. And it goes across different types of horror to an extent. Like Haunting of Hill House is a little more of a traditional ghost story, but it still relies a lot on a lot of really awesome character moments. And I think that's just another thing that really sells it, in that I guess sometimes when maybe a writer, an artist, whatever, not that there's anything wrong with their vision, but it just doesn't feel like there's as personal of stakes, but there's always something to connect with in Mike Flanagan's works. And I think The Haunting of Hill House just was really him hitting the hell out of his stride, because the characters in that are phenomenal. And yes, it is, of course, based on, loosely based on other stuff. It's not like that's the first thing about like Hill House you'll ever see, but still it comes across as a pretty original work. And the way it follows the various characters who all happen to be, this all from like one main family who survived a horrible supernatural sort of like event or so. But even going back, that once those things caught my attention, I went back through his career, started with his first major film, Absentia, and it all hits. It all lands in different types of ways. He's got his sort of trademark style to an extent, and it's really cool seeing that. Again, like practically, well, I guess at this point, actual 11 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just delivers such deep, well thought out stories that happen to be laced with phenomenal horror, and he has proved himself so much that, as you mentioned, he kind of more just directed Gerald's game. So that is, of course, Stephen King, as is Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep being a sequel to The Shining, which it literally was an actual book as well. It's not just some random thing that was made up. Bly Manor was also kind of adapted, and
Hill House was kind of adapted.
Yeah, exactly. Hill House. Some of it's like whatever he gets his hands on, he still makes it very much his own.
He still adapts it, and yeah,
he just had something come out called Midnight Club, which I've actually not seen a single thing of.
I haven't either, and this is, I guess, like he's creating a new series.
Well, and it's a little more, from what I understand, it's more of an anthology in that like there is a central storyline to it, but that it's like individual tales being told in real time behind what's going on with all the people telling the tales, who are all children that I think have like terminal illnesses or something. So it's just generally awful.
Guillermo del Toro has like an anthology series coming out soon.
Yeah, it also looks really dope, which again, he technically
belongs sort of in this list, but again,
kind of
in the same
realm. It looks amazing. And he's definitely a modern master of horror, but he's also been doing it for like decades
he's
now.
A seasoned veteran.
Exactly. He's not as new. So and then the next thing that's really exciting personally is I do appreciate some good Edgar Allan Poe, and he's adapting Fall of the House of Usher. Mike Flanagan is. So that's his next thing that I believe will be coming in 2023, hopefully.
Yeah.
But Flanagan, again, I've become obsessed with him. He floored me with Hill House. I've seen it multiple times at this point. And ever since then, both moving forward as well as even looking back through his previous works, I'm just constantly impressed. And I don't think he has a bad work among them. The man is just dedicated. And I'm so excited to see where he continues to go. I mean, he's not even that much older than you and I. He was born in 78. So again, it's just like he's got so much time and career ahead of him that I can't wait to see what he keeps doing.
My God, Philip, what an excellent answer, discussion, analysis. I really have nothing to add.
I was prepared to do a whole episode on Flanagan. Like I said, I love him.
You just got a little, guys, you got a little like trailer for our future episode.
I'm straight up going to have like a hashtag Flanagan tramp stamp soon. That's how
Flan family, Flan man.
That's another thing that I just actually do love about him, and that he repeats actors that like do well with his work. I love that he just brings them back because he has
guys. If you're wondering, if you're wondering that, if you do know Mike Flanagan and that female lead pops in your head, the reason he uses her so much is that's his wife. Yeah, so that's why. But I love. As someone that dabbles in a lot of what he dabbles in, I love his writing. I love his direction. I love his style. I love his cinematography. Pretty much complete. I concur with everything Philip said. Now, the second one on our list is the one I pitched right after. And we've talked about him on our show as a gem, but he needs eventually his own spotlight, and that is Junji Ito, Japan's master of horror manga anime. And just so this is essentially, if you don't know what those things are, I always feel like I have to talk about these things like no one knows what they are at all. So if you're new to manga or anime, it is animation and writing. So he both writes essentially short stories, but animates them in a very specific Japanese animation style, known as manga, or when it's actually animated, anime.
I'm gonna go even one step further and Japanese nerd out on you.
Oh, please.
Manga is actually specifically when it's just in like comic illustrated form. So anime is anime, and manga typically prefaces, like if people be like, "Oh, the book was better," that's the book. When they make an anime in Japan, there's almost always it's sprung from a manga. And Junji Ito also just cranked God knows how many stories he's written and drawn.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ, yes. Like that's how I kind of got into him, honestly, is you can buy like collections of his short stories and they are thick volumes.
Oh, this shit weighs like 30 pounds.
But it's so much fun. It's, these little ghost stories. And people forget that manga or the graphic novel or how we know it in the States, comics, it is a medium because there is a turn of a page. So you want to utilize that effectively, so when you are ready for that big jump scare, when you turn the page, it's gonna lash out at you. You're gonna feel it. Those nerves are gonna strike a chord through your body like lightning. Now, here's the thing. I know what all the maybe even the Flan family may feel this way. So with the Junji Ito fans, if you already know who that is, you're gonna say, well, he's not fucking modern. He's not new. I wanted to frame the show. We needed to add some extra framing. We needed to frame the show not only in the last 10 to 15-ish years, but also notoriety. So I feel like he hasn't really gotten, especially over in the West, as popular as he did in the last 10 to 15 years. That's why I'm adding him to the modern Masters of Horror as well, even though he probably started, I think he started in the 80s when he was really starting to knock stuff out. But you'll know his work from Tomie and is it Uzumaki?
Yeah, Uzumaki, aka Spiral.
So tell the good people, if they don't know, just to give them an idea of how he likes to craft a story and animate it. Just explain just that one story. There's too many to really talk about, but I feel like that's a good primer.
Uzumaki taps into an interesting, like, primordial sort of obsession or fear, if you will, that there's hints of like the eldritch or like something otherworldly, and it just gives you this lingering sense of dread. It's just like all this just looming.
In a short synopsis,
dread.
it's a city obsessed with.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And he already said it. He already said it. The concept of the spiral.
Yeah, people are just weirdly obsessed with it. It just like
the literal shape.
Yeah, like hits people at different times, and like the things that like it literally seems to like completely overtake them. There's people in town who are artists, but like their entire body of work is just nothing but different takes on a spiral.
And so it's essentially a curse story, but seeing it kind of actually animated, seeing it, or not animated,
even in live action.
Yeah. That in the manga, when you're just seeing the drawings, he's so detailed too. I think on just an artistic standpoint, my God, the amount of detail he puts into his work is uncanny. And just seeing how, like, some of the pages honestly are like full paintings, like in terms of sheer craft, like how he's thinking of movement and all these things. We just like Flanagan, we could do a whole episode on Junji Ito easily.
Yeah, it goes so far beyond just, again, like sort of eldritch horror. Again, there's like more like body horror stuff for sure. There's gruesome stuff that's not even just like light body horror of just like, wouldn't it be horrifying if you found a hole that was the exact shape of your body and then you like went to see if it fit and then you fit too perfectly and you couldn't get out.
Is that the enigma of I forgot the rest of the title. Help me.
Yeah, again, there's too many. There's just too damn. The guy is prolific AF. He's got so many works, but yeah, I that one also just creeps me out because again, I am claustrophobic, so like that one got me. And then there's all sorts of stuff about like metamorphoses and multiple types of horror.
Yeah, he usually focuses on a lot of traditional Japanese horror, but things like honestly just the good old fashioned ghost story, and we see that a lot through his stories that involve Tomie. Tomie is a demon in the shape of a beautiful woman, cannot be killed. She's immortal. And that on paper is already pretty scary. So guys, check them out. I don't want to spend too much time on them, or literally we'll start talking about Flanagan and Ito for the next 40 minutes. But because I want to get to the rest of our list, because the next person on our list is definitely someone where you'd be like, oh yeah, last 10 to 15 years, this guy's been fucking killing it. Probably just last 10. And that is Jordan Peele. He's been killing it with, of course, he started with Get Out, Us, and he just recently put out Nope. It's crazy to
Twilight Zone.
That's true. Yep, he has an anthology series. But crazy to think about his roots. If you don't know Jordan Peele before Get Out, this guy was in comedy. He was in Mad TV. He was in Key and Peele on Comedy Central, I want to say.
Yep.
And it's fascinating because we're going to see some other artists on this list that started in comedy, and they're like, you know what, I want to try my hand at horror.
The two go hand in hand. I think that's so much of why I've
elaborate. Why do you feel that way?
I think the scares, if you're too constantly on edge, then you're preparing yourself and you have the walls up, whereas good horror brings the walls back down. You think that you're safe, and then it scares you all over again. So especially if you're laughing and thinking, oh, this is funny, and you know, you're okay with, again, like feeling a little vulnerable for a moment, and then like, well, guess what? The thing is actually right fucking behind you. Which again, I think Sam Raimi really proved so well back with the Evil Dead series.
Another veteran, seasoned.
So yeah, I mean, again, all the best horror, in my opinion, almost always has really good elements of horror. Of comedy, various types. I mean, sometimes it's a little more slapstick.
It helps with
levity.
It's
very tongue in cheek, but exactly, yeah. It's like if it's too scary, if it's too dark the whole time, you almost get like tired of it. It's too exhausting. So
or desensitized.
It's literally like the other side of the same coin. So I think the people who dabbled in comedy somehow know, okay, well, this would be the funniest thing, but this would be the worst thing, and a lot of times the worst thing happens.
Yeah, they know timing. There is
There's a lot that overlaps.
We could do a whole show on that. Okay.
But back to Jordan Peele, Get Out, his breakout film was fucking great.
And I think what's great about Jordan Peele is an example of, this is probably a sub-thesis to our main thesis. He's an example of what modern filmmakers have been doing with horror, and that is either giving a social commentary, which Jordan Peele does a lot, or the horror is just a metaphor. I would say metaphor for something deeper, usually mental illness, like depression, anxiety, loss, loneliness, something like that.
Yeah, that's true. A good psychological thriller of like, is this really ghosts or is this person just having a breakdown?
Exactly.
It's also one of my favorites. Yeah, it's like,
so follow his work. There's not too much I want to say. He's killing it. He continues to kill it. I think he's the closest. You know what's here? Ooh, I have a point before we move on. I think he's the closest thing we have to a Quentin Tarantino. And what I mean by that is commercially, people will go out to see his movies because of his name, because of the work he's done previously. Just like, oh, I'm going to go see Jordan Peele's new movie. Just like, oh, I want to go see Quentin Tarantino's new movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Next on our list is a gaming studio. Ooh, curveball. Yeah, didn't see that coming, did you? A nerd alert over here. So Studio Supermassive Games. They have made Until Dawn, The Quarry, most recently, and the Dark Pictures Anthology. These are essentially, in a nutshell, interactive films.
Remember those books where it would say, if you want to do this, turn to page 46, and if you want to do that, turn to page 67?
You get to do this in the game.
Choose your own death.
But here's the thing. What's fun about this is, there's still, like any video game, there is still a way to quote unquote beat it. So you want to make right decisions through the story, if you will, of the game. So you are definitely playing a movie. And the whole point of all of these games is to keep everyone alive.
Yeah, it's like an
unless you're a sadist, kind of then fucking kill everyone.
Yeah, if you want to get all the endings, if you want to see the good, the medium, the bad, whatever, then just like, you know what, give into your inner psycho. That's okay.
So guys, give those. I would say, I would say start with Until Dawn. But next on our list is Ari Aster. He is the filmmaker behind Hereditary and Midsommar. He has already carved out his place.
Hereditary alone.
One of the greats.
Holy shit.
I've loved his work. His is not anything necessarily deeper. It's not talking about mental health or social commentary. It is just there to fucking scare you.
It delivers. Good
Very
Lord.
effective.
I mean, two major films in, but this guy is also somebody who I'm just like, subscribe. Like, I'm down. Show me what you got, bud. Let's go. Hereditary. I mean, honestly, in like a certain... this is going to sound a little extra dramatic in a way, but it also is kind of true. But I really kind of think that in a way that, again, like talking about how modern horror has come so far, I think Hereditary in a certain way, like kind of changed my life of just what a film could be.
Elaborate.
The fact that the first like act alone had me almost questioning, like, is this what I came to see? Like, there's nothing scary. Like, it was so much like regular buildup showing you about how just movies are almost always about like regular people and like normal people put into certain situations that are a bit maybe like strange or extreme or whatever, interesting, what have you. And they really just set up the characters so well. And the horror comes from both a mix of very normal everyday stuff, such as not only loss, but like guilt. Again, like, if you haven't seen it, first off, why?
What are you doing?
But secondly, I'm gonna spoil it now. But basically, just like the fact that the brother like kills his little sister, and just like the literal. I mean, that's its own type of horror. Not to mention, there's the supernatural elements.
Well, it was a phone pole, technically.
True, but he got a little too close to it after letting her go to a party.
That's true.
But then you've got the supernatural stuff, which even that was delivered very.
That was a really good twist too. I need to say that real quick. I never saw that coming. That little decapitation.
I didn't either. Again, it flipped like, so many things on its head. And then the fact that, again, there weren't so much gigantic jump scares as it was just a massive creep factor that the scares stayed with me after I left the theater.
Oh, yeah. That's the best kind of horror, because I feel like, and to all you filmmakers listening, as much as, how should I put it, earn your jump scares. Don't rely on them.
It's cheap. It's cheap at this point. We know what's going on.
I kind of hate jump scares, to be honest with you guys. I hate them with the fiery passion. So if a film only has like one, maybe two, but they're really earned and they nail it, and we're going to get to a film like that down the road, it is so effective. But if it's just jump scare after jump scare, you get desensitized.
You gotta throw some humor in there, and you can't do nothing but scares, and especially the cheap
Jordan
ones,
Peele,
because
we
then
need
people expect
hire
it,
Jordan Peele.
and you've ruined the formula. So you gotta ease them back down. But yeah, one of my favorite way to like sum up Ari Aster is
Oh, please.
who hurt you? That man has some fucked up ideas in his head.
That's good.
His short film, which again, like almost, I haven't even actually seen it. I think you can actually find it now. But again, I got obsessed with him for a while, of course, after Hereditary and whatnot. And his first one, again, it's not even supernatural or anything in one bit, but it still is incredibly fucked up. Again, I'll just leave that to everybody to go do their own research. I'm not going to dive into it, but like, good Lord, Ari, are you okay?
Yes. So check out Hereditary, Midsommar, and his future installment called Disappointment Boulevard. Next on our list is Keith Thompson. Now we're switching gears again, guys, because the original list was also pretty much all film and television. So I wanted to make sure that we're highlighting some other artists and other mediums. Keith Thompson does illustrations. So the closest thing we have to modern art, modern fine art, or even commercial art, because he does everything from creating. So essentially the concept art for some of your favorite demons or the undead or shit like that. Check out his art. He's a really talented guy. I think he did I believe I read that he did the monster work for Pacific Rim. And he's not only creative, he's talented. His work is thought provoking. Like, you can look at just one of his images and a whole world can be drawn from it.
I really liked looking at all these various character example type of things. I loved had the styles where some of it was a little more like almost like Renaissance in a way, just like the way it was framed, and then
it's like tech, like he has like
it's so wide ranging.
It's like horror hybrid.
Some of it's hybrid type creatures. Some of it's just like
with like
slightly
mechs.
body horror. Yeah, it's freaking
like Gundam
it's
mechs.
Fun. Yeah, for real. It spans. It really runs the gamut. And it's all of it is just like pretty, again, like very detailed and obviously very well thought out. It's fun shit.
But yeah, hints of fantasy. He does a lot of stuff outside of horror, for the record, too. But I think some of his horror is
it's often called is his wheelhouse.
Yeah, often it's called like the Undead series, I think, on his website. I think he has a niche, definitely, and he's someone to again watch out for. Next on our list is another filmmaker, writer and director, Ty West. But Ty West, he's already came out with X, Pearl in the same year, and even the upcoming film Maxxxine.
I unfortunately have yet to actually see. I'm waiting to see Pearl because I haven't seen X.
And okay. Well, then let me gush.
I have heard such great things, and I'm very excited to see these.
So X is a modern twist on a slasher film. It essentially sets a very small group of people up for failure. The X in the film X is for X-rated, but also X Factor, because the main premise of the story is it's following a very small adult entertainment film crew. So we have the performers, the gals, and one male performer, and they are renting some space on some farmland to make their adult film. But little do they know that the owners of this farm have dark and seedy corners of their life that are only unbeknownst to them once murders start happening on the land. So then it turns into a fucking slasher horror fest film. But the twist is that we're not dealing with supernatural or it's not Jason, it's not Krueger, it's not Michael Myers. It's an elderly couple,
terrifying in its own way.
Here's the cool thing: is the main female lead plays one of the young performers in X, and I won't say that. No spoilers for this one, but she plays so the grandmother, the female elderly psychopath, is then that same female actor plays the young version of her in Pearl. So Pearl is a prequel to show kind of her rise to madness and things like that. And then Maxxxine is showing the original protagonist in X, when she actually makes it into the adult entertainment industry. Next on our list is Joshua Hoffine. This is photography. This is horror photography. I love this guy's work. It is everything from what's there's a blonde little girl that's featured in this, and that's usually the person that's getting scared or observing the horror. That's Joshua's daughter.
I kind of figured, actually. I didn't bother looking into much of the personal. I mostly just looked up but yeah, I remember thinking like, this one girl is in this a lot. I get the feeling that like maybe this is a way of like, her having questions about daddy's work, and then daddy being like, well, why don't like, it's just all make believe, but like, why don't you help and see that it's just kind of fun to do? Because it's like genuinely like, if maybe Tim Burton didn't take his Prozac or something.
And it's I think photography is hard to do because on one hand, that these things are staged, right? When they're using live models like his little girl, or clearly like puppets, things like that. But I think he does most of the time. I'll say that there are some times when it's hard to suspend disbelief, but a lot of the time you're seeing horrific imagery from ghouls and goblins and ghosts to just the first image I saw was this dead woman with a torn off mouth and cockroaches coming out of her mouth as the little girl is sitting by her bedside trying to understand what's happening. So just that description is horrific alone, but actually seeing it, and you're seeing the cockroaches and you're seeing everything kind of ooze upon the image, it really starts to take on a life of its own. But he also plays with a lot of, I think, not only supernatural things, clearly from the initial intro, but also cartoonish stints to that. He has a little fun with it,
like retro-ish feel to it as well. Like the TV has antennas, like the couches are clearly like kind of older style, like the wallpapers in the background. Like there's a lot of thought that goes into setting these up so that they say so much with just the one image that you're getting.
Yeah, there's a lot of prep, clearly, with
and even
this
like
kind
Victorian
of
stuff, and like I actually really appreciated too his like tributes to
old
Lovecraft.
classic horror.
Yeah, to Lovecraft.
Yeah.
He literally has one
a lot
called
of
Innsmouth,
tentacles,
aka the shadow over Innsmouth, and then there's some that are from kind of like the same era that are also like other, like basically just fish people. I don't know what else to really call them, but
you should have. I was about to stop you when you were talking about the Eldritch horrors. You should tell the good people what that is in conjunction with Lovecraft, because probably a lot of people are like, who? What? These are the ancient,
the old ones.
Yes.
Yeah, Eldritch. I guess just like even as like a definition, it literally just kind of means like this strange. It's just another kind of interesting word for like supernatural kind of ghostly stuff. But it was so very.
I guess describe it like, to me, they're like god-like entities that are they're almost unfathomable.
Yeah, it's like Lovecraft used it so specifically, and that Lovecraft had his entire like Cthulhu and all his various like old gods and the sleeping ones and the dead ones, like otherworldly shit that we can barely imagine, and that because it doesn't even exist in our dimension, what we see barely makes any sense to our brains.
So if we saw it, it would be a level of horror
it wouldn't even be a static. Yeah, it wouldn't even be a static thing, because it's not even a third dimension creature where we live. It's some kind of otherworldly thing, and the very sight of it. Not only could we not process what we're seeing, but what we can process would literally just drive us insane.
That nailed it on the fucking the nail in the coffin. That's right. Next on our list, this brought me a lot of joy, is we're starting to see a lot of ladies in horror. Karyn Kusama. She is a filmmaker. She does other stuff outside of horror, but she directed the cult classic now, Jennifer's Body. She did a segment in the anthology horror film XX, and she did The Invitation. And Jennifer's Body is. I'll start here. Jennifer's Body it was hard to get into, but I can see how it's become kind of a cult classic after a while. But I loved I'm not sure if you've actually seen The Invitation, but I thought that was such a masterclass in minimalistic horror. Just taking someone at a dinner party,
the
and turning
tension.
into this. Yeah,
is
exactly.
so much of the horror, and even once it starts delivering on legitimate concepts, things that you can finally grasp, as opposed to just the unease again that is so pervasive throughout the film. The Invitation was so good.
Excellent. Yes, excellent work. We're excited to see what else she comes comes out with in the future. Next on our list is Mark Powell. Now, if you Google Mark Powell, we've learned this the hard way, both me and Mr. Church. Make sure you put in Mark Powell artist sculpture or dream dioramas, because what he does is mostly, obviously he's a sculptor, he does sculpture work, but he does essentially what I'm calling walkable exhibits or life-size dioramas. And if you can imagine finding a room in hell, that's the kind of thing he likes. So a lot of, God, we could probably do a whole just artistic analysis on his work, because a lot of blacks, grays, browns, a lot of earth tones. Yeah. And, it's almost like
it's Silent Hill AF.
Yeah. Philip made a good point in our pre-show. It's like, if you've ever seen horror
claymation
films or something like that. Yeah. But they use claymation to bring it to life. It looks a lot like that, but of course they're static, images. And you
can practically see and hear it like moving again. It's
this is like where to start. A lot of body horror. We're seeing creatures with
humanoid
walking around,
non-humanoid
creatures with their guts coming out of their stomachs and their body being full tentacles or bags of meat, or just
one of his best known arts is literally called Meat Cathedral.
Yep, Meat Cathedral. That's my next metal band, guys. My next metal band is Meat Cathedral. And but yeah, anyways, it is again, I wanted to shine a light on some other artists, and we don't talk about sculptures a lot on this show. And Mark Powell, for horror, is no pun intended, killing it.
He very much also gets the "Are You Okay" award. Once you Google this guy, he specifically he's the Australian horror artist, if that helps. But yeah, the word dioramas, for instance, will definitely pull up the right stuff. Enjoy your nightmares.
Enjoy your nightmares. This is we were talking about this in the pre-show too. This is I will end with this. This is the scariest stuff I saw when I was researching for the show. When I was looking at this stuff, I was, how Philip was saying, like, it lingers, it stays with you even after you watch the film or read the book or whatever, see the thing. This stayed with me.
I can see that. It's pretty goddamn gruesome.
Who hurt you?
It's gnarly.
Next on our list is David Bruckner. He's a filmmaker behind VHS, The Ritual, The Night House, and on the list it says upcoming Hellraiser reboot.
It's out now, baby.
Out now, yeah, on Hulu.
It's fun stuff.
I actually did see it last weekend.
Yeah, me too.
It's, here's the thing about Hellraiser, guys. Let's do a little T-Buck tangent corner. I love me some Cenobites. I love the idea. I've actually read the original Hellbound Heart. The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. And I love what these creatures are on paper and in your imagination, but they are so hard to bring them to life, I think, in horror. I find myself reading more about Cenobites and Cenobite lore and stuff like that than caring any amount about the actual characters, the love story, in this modern reimagining. It's essentially a tale about an addict, a drug addict. I can care less about them. I want to understand Leviathan and all of the rituals. I want to learn more just about them. Like, if there was a story just about the Cenobites, I probably would gravitate towards that more than the others.
Likewise. Yeah, I do love all the lore and the background stuff behind them. It's pretty interesting, and it's
what you think. Let's do a little mini review.
I liked it overall. I loved the new take on the lamentation configuration, aka the puzzle box, the different stages of it. I like that they didn't just lean into it of going like, well, we've already had Hostel and all this stuff, so let's just go full gore porn, torture porn. I like that they didn't do that, actually.
They teetered. They played with a little bit of gore porn,
given the nature of Hellraiser, but still they didn't go just like
they didn't go overboard.
Yeah, they didn't go tastelessly into it. But yeah, I liked it. I liked the reinterpretation of it. I loved the twist on the main character story. Usually it's like, oh, I'm cursed and I have 3 days to figure out how to uncurse myself, or everybody around me is going to die or something. This was like an interesting inversion of some of those familiar tropes of the main character / like the final girl, if you will, speaking of horror stuff.
Yeah.
Really
Good
cool though.
callback.
I still dug overall. I mean, yeah, it's it's not like it's a 10 out of 10. And I still would probably say that The Night House is my favorite film of his so far,
Yeah.
as much as The Ritual was
Agreed.
also amazing.
Ooh, Ritual. I would say Ritual for me is maybe a number one, and then Night House is a
They're
close second.
very different and both awesome in their own way. It might just also be that I saw The Night House more recently, but I did
That was
go
one
back
of your
and rewatch.
gems. One of your
Yeah,
first gems
exactly.
ever.
It was literally one of my gems because it was that damn good at one point. But The Ritual still also stuck with me. And I mean, that like there's that part where they find that creepy fucking cabin in the middle of nowhere and they decide to sleep in it. And then like that one guy wakes up butt ass naked in front of that like effigy, that horrible, horrible effigy. That fucked me up. Like that alone was already terrifying. That ratcheted things up like 8 notches for me when watching it, because he came to, again, the effigy itself was pretty fucking creepy. And again, like even he was just like, where am I? He's like butt ass naked. It was just all so many different types of horror in that one scene alone. So The Ritual, strong entry, but I personally think The Night House is like also just what earns him the sort of modern master title.
Yeah, I definitely would say not to hold Hellraiser up to his best work. Though it was a
fun romp. It was absolutely worth watching to me. I loved it.
It was a good entry. I would call it a solid okay, because remember, this is the 11th fucking film in this franchise.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of turds out there. The first and second Hellraiser were, the first one is like a cult classic. The second one was really good, and then the
Also
rest of
pretty
them are horrible, a combination of terrible and horrible.
Well,
and
there were one or two okay ones throughout, but yeah, for the most part, they just became too campy.
Yeah,
way too cheesy, stupid, campy.
Horrible, terrible. They were bad, guys. But this Hellraiser one was, there was clearly like he really loved the subject matter. He really wanted to try to make it come to life. I can see why it went straight to streaming. Give it a watch. I think it is a good entry for the filmography that is Hellraiser, the franchise.
Yeah, it's still it's a good modern like update on the franchise. Like you can watch it not having seen a damn thing, because it almost is like not exactly ignoring the previous stuff, like because there are nods to like the previous movies, but it also feels like it's like in the same way that the newer Star Treks were like an alternate timeline, and that like the other ones still exist somewhere. Like there's the other Spock who shows up, but still for the most part it stands on its own, and it does. Again, it's still like an easy thing to jump into. It's pretty damn fun. Yeah, again, I definitely would say worth a watch for sure.
But if you're, I guess a good place
his original, his full on original.
If you're gonna start
though, with the Ritual and Night House,
the Night House.
Holy shit!
Yeah, you will really see like you'll really see his skill level shine. I feel like you didn't see as much of his skill level shine in Hellraiser, but the Ritual and Night House, you'll see it shine very, very well. Now, next on our list, quick disclaimer, I have not actually read this, but I saw it on list after list after list, so I'm excited to read it one day, and I just wanted to highlight it here because, again, we're seeing new budding, we'd already talked about Stephen King, but there's other writers out there. There's other horror writers, and this one is from South Korea. A novelist named Ha Young-yoon is what we're going to say is close. I apologize if I'm butchering that. The novel is called The Hole, and I just kept seeing it topped on 10 lists, like best horror in the last 10 15 years was the whole over and over and over again. So
yeah, I have not read it either, but seeing as how many awesome horror, obviously again mostly movies because it's just easier to consume film, but still how much awesome horror has been coming out of Korea over the past little while too.
Man, yeah.
I would have to assume that again that this book would be pretty solid, and again it's also just worth mentioning that again, like these people come from all over. Like most of the people we've talked about are pretty much American. Some of them might be more like British, possibly.
So I wanted to highlight, a little more inclusivity on the world stage, and that's why remember, put a pin on. There's a lot of amazing female filmmakers really coming to the fray, and we're gonna get to those a little bit here.
This lady wrote a pretty solid horror book, apparently.
Yeah. Next on our list is someone that I've actually been wanting to do a solo show on for a long time, and that is Robert Eggers. Now, again, Robert Eggers is he only has 3 films to his name, but I know he's going to just keep. I think the next one is his take on Dracula, a Dracula story. But he started with The Witch, The Lighthouse. He just came out with The Northman. That last one obviously is not necessarily horror. I guess it could be. be horror in one way. But he's just, I can totally understand right away why this guy is a film critic. Like, he's a critic sweetheart.
He's a filmmaker's or a
Buff.
film
Yeah.
buff. Yeah. Sorry. I was
a
like, am I going to say this right?
Yeah, a film buff's kind of filmmaker. There we go. Because oh my God.
They straight up built the fucking cabin, and like all of that was real.
Yeah, I'll say it, since we don't have a lot of time. I'll say it with this very simple sentence. His entire feature, each of his features, absolutely art. They are so artistic. They're like watching a moving painting from beginning, middle to end.
They're insanely well researched, so insanely well produced,
just well done. Yeah.
The witch was like so insanely accurate. It was spot on. Lighthouse, such an interesting jump in both time and like sort of material, but also just you felt like both of those are just, they take you into the moment. I actually I did not see The Northman because again, just the pandemic shit.
I did.
I still need to, and I intend to, because again, I love
so brutal.
Eggers. So it's like I heard the good things. I just didn't get out to see it, and I'm sure it's somewhere that I can stream now. But my God, The Witch, I saw that so many times, and the same thing with The Lighthouse, and especially with just The Lighthouse being just two people.
But again, black and white. That was a very specific
The Lighthouse
choice.
Yeah, the scenery itself is like the other character in a way. Like it's so present. You're not just like, oh, just these two douches. It's like, no, it's
so the cinematography is like just next level good. When you think that it couldn't get better, it does, kind of, with Robert Eggers. That's how. Well, we'll leave it at that. Next on our list is digital art, CG animation, and that is by an artist named Oleg Dovenko. He is someone I found kind of late. I added him to the list kind of late into the game, and the more I've looked at his stuff, so I would say Mark Powell scared me the most, but I think I like Dovenko's art the most. It is everything from, again, a lot of Lovecraftian kind of art to just good old-fashioned zombie creations, character creations. I think I just like the look of his art because I think it's probably half sketch that he does probably from hand, and then he puts it into like probably Unreal Engine or something like that, and then he just takes screenshots of it with different, because I know he does animation too, and he's helping to make a game called Ill. But I love his work. His character designs, his creatures they feel real. They feel like you could reach out and you wouldn't want them. You wouldn't want to be able to touch them, but it's uncanny what he does with his art.
Yeah, it borders on like a touch of sci-fi, a lot of touch of just somewhat body horror, but then there's also just some of it being very approachable and realistic. And there's something also just about the
look of it too.
Yeah, again, just like the pseudo, like sort of, again, like you can almost like see some of the polygons here and there.
And that's purposeful too. He could have made it perfect.
Yeah, exactly. It's very intentional, but like that's part of the style, and it's fucking rad. Like it works. So like in some, but for some that are a little more,
like I could see this in like Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil.
And some of them come across as like you would almost think it's an image from the news, but then you start to look at the details. You're like, okay, wait, while that one person is definitely a dead human, you're like, these other things looking at him are not human. And then you're like, wow, what the fuck are they wearing? So it's just interesting how he knows how to make a realistic scene, and it's just meant to be sort of poured over. That again, it's very thoughtful, with like the amount of detail and the fact that like you're gonna go back for a second glance.
Yeah, Philip said this well, like the body horror. When you think of body horror, this kind of body horror, think of The Thing, a body ripping, open, but then a mouth emerging from it, and teeth and tentacles and appendages, kind of like, the same kind of arms and legs that you had to cut off in Dead Space, that kind of look, of body horror, and how some sort of creature is ripping out of this person from the inside to create the creature. So it still has lingering elements of a human, but it is clearly no longer human. Next on our list is Fede Alvarez. I think I want to say that. He's a filmmaker behind the Evil Dead remake and probably his biggest hits or sleeper hits would be Don't Breathe 1 and 2. I don't have a ton to say about this guy. I think he's an up-and-comer, and he's had enough work that I think he's probably going to continue to make stuff and really wow us with the stuff he makes.
Yeah, the Evil Dead remake from 2013 was pretty fucking solid. As far as it being like an actual continuation of that franchise, I feel like they should have just sort of taken it a slightly different direction and just not named it Evil Dead. Because outside of it having like the Necronomicon and being in like a cabin in the woods, it's still just like, it wasn't funny. It didn't like smack at all of Sam Raimi's original trilogy. It did deliver on like horror and some scares and whatnot. And I mean, again, like the production value was like pretty fucking insane, and it was very creepy. And again, Don't Breathe was like such an interesting like switch of directions to go so practical. Which again, I that's another thing that I always love to give extra credit to people when they come up with something that is like far more original than not, since we do live in the age of like recycled ideas and reboots. So it's funny that he went from Evil Dead remake, and I feel like that maybe kind of gave him the ability, unless I'm just completely misremembering when that movie came out, but let me just double check. Yeah, it came out after that. So the overall plot though of Don't Breathe is that these basically like punk ass kids break into some old blind guy's house to try to rob him, and they pick the wrong fucking blind guy.
Right.
Like it's a weird, again, like certain things were inverted. Again, like the use of sound and like light and all that stuff. It was way more inventive and creative than what they did with something that was established like Evil Dead. So I really like that first chance to be like, hey, who can do Evil Dead remake? Who's got this? And he was like, oh, me, I'll fucking do it. And then he crushed it. And then he was like, by the way, I have some of my own work. And that clearly they were just like, yeah, we loved it, so let's do it. And that he's been able to do Don't Breathe and a sequel. And again, probably other stuff coming up too. Again, I don't remember off the top of my head, if not just other stuff in general. But yeah, again, still very much like doing some good fun stuff. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he did one of the
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, it's a Texas Chainsaw reboot from earlier this very year, but also The Girl in the Spider's Web, part of the Girl
and
with the Dragon
from Dusk Till
Tattoo.
Dawn, he's done some television work too. So yeah, he's been all over the place. Yeah. So check out his work, guys. I think, yeah, this is another example of just like kind of a Robert Eggers. I think he's just getting started. I think we're going to see a lot of amazing work come out of this filmmaker, and that concludes our list. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, why didn't you talk about this guy or this gal or whatever thing like that?
But they didn't talk about my favorite. Well, first off, shut up.
Tough titties, as we like to say on our show. Now we do have some honorable mentions, and the first two are probably the first two you're going to think of, like, well, why aren't they on the list? And that is James Wan and Leigh Whannell. Now, James Wan, I decided to put him on the honorable mentions list because he really has become more of a veteran, seasoned master of horror. Because, and then I'll say it with this one line. He made the first Saw in 2004. That's almost 20 years ago. Do you fucking feel old yet? Now, I added Leigh Whannell because what a lot of people don't know is he helped to write the first Saw in a lot of movies with James Wan. So he was sometimes kind of the brains behind the filmmaking.
They were a fun, like, buddy. Like,
yeah, they were a little bit of a duo. And if you're wondering who, most people can recognize James Wan from, his other work because he's ventured into,
Conjuring.
Well, I was gonna say DC films. Like he's done.
Oh yeah,
he even did like Fast and the Furious film.
Yeah,
he
did Fast and the Furious. I think it was like
he's done a lot of other stuff,
shit.
and then he always comes back to his main staples, of course, are from the Saw series, The Conjuring, Insidious, Malignant.
The Conjuring is just also like top 10 modern horror movies.
Conjuring.
That shit is brilliant.
And but now Leigh helped to write Saw, Dead Silence, Insidious Chapter 2, but then he directed a few, Insidious Chapter 3, Upgrade, and where I feel like he really hit a stride, and that is with The Invisible Man. That was excellent. That was like two characters, and it was like so thrilling, so captivating, so much fun.
I was so on edge
with
the whole
scares
time because they did so good about just like, he's probably right there.
And Leigh is, Leigh is the young white guy. He's actually Australian. Is he Australian? Yeah. He's actually Australian, but he plays a American in the very first Saw film. So he's the young white lead opposite
Cary Elwes.
Yeah.
He's acted in a handful of small things too. So it's just kind of fun that he's dedicated to it. There's a horror comedy called Cooties It was a zombie movie with Rainn Wilson and Elijah Wood. Interesting cast, and he was one of the teachers of this school that's sort of like the epicenter of a zombie outbreak. It was way more of the
I've heard of
comedy than
Cooties. I didn't
horror.
know that. Yeah, I didn't know
It's
that.
fun. It's absolutely worth a watch. He acted in it. I don't think that he had much. He might have helped with producing a little bit, but still, just a fun comedic zombie romp where you get to see children get annihilated because they're zombies.
So the next people on our list was either quite didn't hit the mark yet, or honestly were just too new. Where I wouldn't call them
not
a modern
enough
master
works yet and stuff too. For sure.
And then Zach, so a lot of, because I could heal the groans already of people being like, what about this guy? So Zach Kreger is the filmmaker behind the very, very recent Barbarian. Though an excellent film, and another guy that came from comedy, specifically The Whitest Kids You Know.
Barbarian was so good.
It was so good, but
shit.
it
was
so
fun.
I want to see what else he does. Like, is he going to switch gears and do something else, like a traditional comedy or traditional drama, or if he does more horror? We don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, because
definitely check out Barbarian.
As I've said numerous times now, Barbarian did fantastic with its humor. It did both. You could be so tense because there's the scene wants it,
and it gave you a break.
Yeah,
there's a lot of levity.
Yeah, you could be so waiting in the dark area, in a dark scene, to be like, holy shit, something's going to jump out. But then he would just completely just floor you out of nowhere with a great laugh, and then next thing you know, you are terrified again.
Exactly. So check it out. But
great shit.
I'm curious to see what he's going to do next. Next on our list is Rose Glass. She's a writer and filmmaker that made a film called Saint Maud. Jennifer Kent is another writer and director that made. Now this is very, very famous, The Babadook. Ooh, that was good. I was scared. Lee. So again,
Babadook was fucking between not only the writer but even just having an awesome female lead who did not have bullshit romantic, what's I always forget the name of it, but whatever that one sort of test or that one film measure is, where it's okay, do women ever have a conversation, and if they do, is it just about the men? And this,
or is it only with a conversation, or a conversation only with men in the film?
Yeah,
they don't actually talk to women.
Exactly. And this is just hey, guess what? Female led, fucking, nothing romantic. It's not at all about boys or family drama.
And this is another example of the horror is a metaphor for something deeper, mental health.
Yeah.
And, depression and grief and loss and things like that. And that's what the Babadook is. Next on our list is Lee Janiak. This was, she made the reboot of an old, I think, R.L. Stine book series, Fear Street, part 1, 2, and 3. But I feel like she really nailed it. So this was done for television or streaming, as it's often called now, and she really killed it. So I'm really curious to see what she comes out with in the future, if she stays with horror or not. But it was so new that I feel like it was an honorable mention. And then Nia DaCosta, a filmmaker behind the 2021 remake of Candyman. I thought this version of Candyman was great. It's just so new that I want to give her time to see what else she comes out with. And then the last two on this was more of a traditional honorable mention, which is the anthology film XX, which was made in 2017, which was a series of 4 stories each story is made by a different filmmaker. Luckily, one of them was by Karyn Kusama. So we know that she's already been doing horror for a while, but there was also Javanka. This is all done by women. Javanka Yukovic, and then Annie Clark, which is the real, the real life name. Her stage name is Saint Vincent. So the musical musician Saint Vincent. Her real, that's her stage name. Her real life name is Annie Clark, so she went under Annie Clark for the film. She directed one of the features, and then Roxanne Benjamin. So let's bring it on home, Mr. Church. Why study? Maybe 2-part conclusion. These films are not just horror; they're art.
Yeah.
And why should we get into the new era that is the new renaissance that is horror?
I think fear runs the world so much more than we would like to admit or recognize. Fear of others, unfortunately, drives, everything from policy to just family rules and things. And I think understanding all the different sort of aspects of human fear and the things that make a person, again, act a little cuckoo. You've got the other side of it. It's oh, well, love can make you crazy. Well, guess what? There's all kinds of extreme circumstances. And so just when pushed to unbelievable limits. What could humankind be capable of? Because yeah, these movies are works of fiction, but at the same time, a real human brain thought these things up and wrote them down. So in theory, they're all possible. And I really just think that understanding the human psyche is always going to keep us moving forward as like a species. Just civilization needs to stay on some sort of track. And I think that in like a kind of a weird way, and in like a give the devil his due kind of way, just that like even horror can be illuminating, just to say like, what are you afraid of and why? Like why does this bother you so much? Because then you can at least start to get to answering the question, hopefully.
Well, there you have it, guys. The modern masters of horror from top to bottom. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank my guest, Mr. Philip Tomie.
Don't do it.
Church. He's going to be back again for, we're going to talk about Mike Flanagan. We're going to talk about Junji Ito. Time is of the essence. We will do it in due time. But until then, thank you for listening, guys. But before we go, there's a little extra for you, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top with what we call the Gym of the Week. If you're new to the show and don't know what the Gym of the Week is, it's something we like to talk about here at the end that doesn't always fit into the main scheme of the episode, but we got to give it to you nonetheless because it may be on our radar in the last day, last week, last month. So, we got to give it to you guys so you guys can dig deeper. Before we get there, let's talk about their sponsor. This week's gyms are brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is our go-to tool for remote podcast recordings. What's great is that you can record separate audio and video tracks, and it's all backed up on a secured cloud, so you never lose your hard work. Even better, it's easy to use, and there's nothing to download. So go to zen.ai, that's zen.ai/Art of the Beholder, and get 30% off your first 3 months with a pro account. Now back to the gyms. I don't really have a traditional gym. I just wanted to tell you my number one of this list in no particular order. The one I would recommend I know we gave you a lot to choose from. So mine may surprise you. It was Saint Maud. Saint Maud, I thought was stunning from beginning to end. It's shorter.
It was enthralling.
Less than 90 minutes.
It was really good. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I get that. That's cool.
I thought it was a perfect mix of everything, and it has one jump scare in the whole film, and it fucking earned it. It made me, like, I think, kind of yell out a little bit, like shriek, like I jumped so hard. Mr. Church, what's your number one recommendation from this whole list?
Haunting of Hill House. Honestly, I'm going Flanagan all the way. No surprises there. It just, again, it hits all the beats. I love each character gets such like justice done to their full-on backstory of understanding, like, what are the real world issues haunting these people, and then of course let's not forget the ghosts actually haunting these people, and just the balance of all of that stuff. So that, yeah, it's not exactly humor, but the way that the writing handled switching around from the various topics, from not only, again, character to character, but real life drama, relatable drama, to, something super fucking creepy. And again, not a lot of jump scares. There are a couple throughout the season, but that's another thing that I really think that one of them is very, also, again, it's earned and intentional. It even fucks with the people in the moment. Like it's for everyone. It's not just for us, the viewer. It fucks with like the people in the scene in a very real way, and it like has a big plot impact. So like, kind of like how you said with Saint Maud, like it's earned. I do want to throw a quick sort of regular-ish gem out there, though. I just found this really rad a band that has a self-titled album. It's called Trip the Witch, and to just put it simply, it's I keep just calling it like existential space folk. It always comes across as folky at its heart.
That's quite a
yeah. It's like it's just progressive
genre
enough that it's like sort of spacey. That like it gives me these big ambient moods. It gives me this weird sense of exploration and mystery. But then at the same time, it comes down to just really good, simple songwriting that really strikes me as like folksy.
So wait, is the artist named that, or that was the album title?
Both. Yeah, it's a self-titled album. Just Trip the Witch. So regardless, just search that. You'll find the right thing. As far as I've seen, that's the only album of theirs. But hey, thank you, Spotify algorithm. You nailed it. I really fucking dig that one. You don't always do that great, but thank you, Spotify.
We want to thank the algorithm gods.
Thank you, Cloud Daddy.
Help sponsor this episode, guys. If you like that, you can of course check us out at novadayproductions.com. There you'll find things like the Entropy Sessions, Post Meridium, Adulteration, Cancel Culture Lotto, and a lot more to come. Of course, you'll see ads for this show if you want to check out our other episodes. episodes. I think you'll really enjoy a lot of the other episodes with Mr. Philip Church too. Don't forget to check us out also at
Smash the like button.
_Novo_day and at Novo Day Media. Yes, smash that like button, do all the things. You know what to do.
Leave us a comment.
It's internet etiquette. I don't need to explain it to you. Jesus Christ. You know what to do. If you want to do it, do it. We don't care. Do it. We're still going to make the show. We don't care. And if you'd like to sponsor a Little Love Child now. If you'd like to sponsor a Little Love Child, or you want to be on the show, you can reach out to us at novodaymedia@gmail.com. If you want to hire that beautiful silver. Yep. That's right. If you want to hire that beautiful silver tongue of Mr. Philip Churches, how do they do that?
You can go to philipchurch.tech. That's Philip with one L and tech like technology, because let's face it, we live in a techie world, and I am a super nerd. So I have my own full studio. I've looked up the things about making the books and doing the voiceovers, and that's what I do. I've got some fun ones coming out. Just finished an interesting sort of like dramatic thriller, as well as a little erotic-ish book that you won't find under my name. You'll find it under a pseudonym of mine that I've really enjoyed coming up with. But yeah, I got some fun stuff. So I do blog posts. I always make sure to mention these shows, but just other stuff. Check out my blog on my website, philipchurch.tech.
There you go, guys. Check it out. And until next time, be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed.
Stay spooky.
We love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created and hosted by Novo Day and the Novo Day Collective. Facebook.com/Novo Day Media, at Novo Day Media on Twitter and Instagram. Music by A Company. Facebook.com/ACoMusic123. ACO on Spotify. Logo design by Tom Justice, JESTUS, of thejusticecompany.com. And executively produced by Clayton Anderson. All rights reserved.